Welcome to Blaze News, the mandate from Washington, D.C. I'm Jill Savage, of course, joined by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson, and one of our favorites here. You know, we have to come to D.C. We have to catch up with one of our favorite congressmen, Brandon Gill. So thanks so much for making some time for us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I mean, when we look at this, we saw you right before you went in to, actually get confirmed and all that just to get through in Congress. And I want to know what this journey has been like for you, because you've been here now for 6 months, and I assume that there's been a lot that you've learned about the city. Like, what was the biggest thing that you think that was maybe like the misconception that you had about what this job would actually entail versus the reality that you now see on the ground every day?
Yeah, DC is its own ecosystem here. There are all kinds of different players trying to influence the legislative process. There's media everywhere all the time watching and listening to everything you say and do. We have committee hearings all the time. We're voting later today on a rescissions package, finally, to claw back money from NPR and PBS. So it's been a wild ride. And you learn about really how this sausage is actually made, and think about the one big beautiful bill and being a part of the negotiation process for what that looks like. What is the final package going to be? It's really been phenomenal.
It's a wild ride indeed. I mean, so one thing that it's clear that we've said, repeatedly, just watching you, it's just obvious, self-evident truth really, is that your talking is good, right? So when you're doing the committee hearings and everything else, what you've been saying is really powerful stuff. It's great stuff. But I'm curious more about, what you're seeing when it comes to the sausage getting made, because, we had talked about this at the very beginning. Congress is fundamentally broken. The legislative process is fundamentally broken. We don't pass budgets, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone's good. All the good people are trying to do the best they can. Mm-hmm. So just what are some of the things you just noticed about that process? Yeah. Good and bad.
Yeah, I would describe the Republican conference as we're all pointing in the same direction generally. We have generally the same goals. But we've got a lot of differences in ideology and sort of ideas of how to get there. So think of the different groups. We've got the libertarian-minded people here. We've got the fiscal hawks. We've got the neoconservatives. We've got the sort of Reaganite fusionist. We've got everything in between. And sometimes those different groups sort of butt up against each other, and they disagree fundamentally at times. But one of the amazing things is seen as having a leader in the White House who's able to coalesce all of these different groups. And I think Speaker Johnson's done a great job of that as well, and move us in the direction of getting real legislative change done. A lot of people talk about Congress as a body that doesn't do anything. They don't ever pass bills. I mean, we pass 100 bills or so every year or so. But we're about to pass probably the biggest and most consequential piece of conservative legislation in decades. And seeing all of these different groups butt heads at times, make deals with each other, negotiate, being in the room whenever some of that's happening, talking to leadership and everything. It's been a pretty extraordinary thing.
With that in mind, we see this, the MAGA movement, right? It is very much a movement here. How do you see the conservative class kind of going back up against the establishment that has held a stranglehold on DC for so long?
Yeah, I think the conservative class is ascendant right now. Think of where we're at right now versus where we were even 10 years ago.
I don't want to. No,
exactly.
No,
and that's,
don't make me.
That's the thing. It's that before you talk about building a wall, and then you have even some people occasionally on our side of the aisle who would push back pretty hard and not like that idea. Right now, we're talking about mass deportations and taking our country back from illegal aliens who have invaded. And right now, you can't be a Republican and get elected and not support building a wall. We're about to give over $100 billion to DHS and ICE for border security and for deportations. Think of how far we have come there. We talk about the woke agenda. Social issues historically were things that Republicans sort of shied away from at times. The prevailing wisdom was that we don't want to talk about social issues because we're the party of, balanced budgets and economics, and all those things are great. But we want to stay away from the culture war. We have embraced that now. And I think that's because the left has driven their party off of a cliff. They're talking about putting boys and girls sports, boys and girls bathrooms, and really absurd things. But that's where we're at now. We are now the party that fights.
Brandon Gill, have you ever used a women's restroom? Tell me what that's in reference to.
I have not. And I can clearly state that I have not, unambiguously. We had a hearing earlier today with sanctuary state governors. And one of them is J.B. Pritzker from Illinois. And he is coddles illegal alien criminals in his state, refuses to work with federal law enforcement and ICE to deport illegal aliens. But he also has a really weird history talking about some of these bathroom issues. And in 2017, he had tweeted that as protest against President Trump, everybody should use the opposite gender's bathroom. So I asked him about it. I asked him, have you ever used the women's restroom? And he couldn't give me a straight answer, unfortunately. But that's where their party is at.
What I loved about that was that video was fantastic, because what I loved about that is his silence. He was just, there's multiple times where just dead air, and he's just kind of sitting there like mouth breathing, doesn't know what to say. Like, that's not the issue. Well, I'm confused.
Well, that's where the Democrats are at right now. They're terrified of their base. And they know that if he just said something that's so simple and so self-evident that men and women are different and it's normal for them to use different bathrooms and men shouldn't go in women's restrooms and it's okay for women to not want men in their restrooms. Those are basic truths. He can't say those things because he knows that it's going to upset his base. That's where they're at right now.
So speaking of that, let's talk about what's going on throughout the country, possibly even this weekend. I mean, I'm thinking about staying here a little extra to see the big, beautiful parade. And then also, right, there's this threat of even more riots and protests, they say, on the 14th. So a lot of America is talking about this. And in terms of, being afraid of the base, obviously we're not seeing restraint so far. So what are your thoughts about this?
We even saw in this hearing that the Democrat, what appears to be the Democrat official policy now, or official position, is that ICE is comparable, if not totally tantamount to Nazis. I mean, that's what they said very clearly in this hearing. I mean, I find that so repulsive, so disgusting. It's offensive, obviously, to everybody who died at the hands of the Nazis, but it's also so far out there. And you're saying this in the context of illegal aliens and leftists in LA who are rioting and burning that city down, waving Mexican flags, throwing rocks at police officers, burning cop cars. That's the environment they're saying this in. I mean, it really is astounding.
So what do you and your fellow lawmakers need to do just to deal with all the rioting that's going on? Because everything goes back to ICE and illegal immigration at its core.
Yeah, I think that we need to put the pedal to the floor right now. I mean, what we're seeing now is illegal aliens came into our country illegally. And now they're rioting to allow more illegal aliens to come into our country illegally. And that's how you lose your country. That's what it looks like to lose your country. So I think that our biggest priority should be border security and deportations. I think without that, all of the other issues, like fiscal issues, which are very important, don't matter anymore because we don't have a country anymore. So I think we've got to support the president. We have got to get funding to ICE and to DHS so that we can carry out these deportations. And I think that the rioters who are looting American stores should all be prosecuted. And I think that's basic common sense, too.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen, again, to your point originally about how conservative or the good guys are in charge instead of the establishment is, the music to my ears right now is that people are actually talking about going after the people who are behind this, organized networks of groups. And it's really crazy that a few years ago, you weren't allowed to say that. Like Antifa doesn't exist and all this sort of madness. And I sense that, from what you see the same thing, I hope. And that's what I'm asking here, that there's a lot, this administration is serious about it. And so are many members of Congress.
They are, and we are. One of the questions that arises here is, who is funding these riots? And these don't appear to be entirely organic. They appear to be coordinated. I think we need to figure out what NGOs or what nonprofits or what institutions are paying for this. Make sure they are not receiving taxpayer dollars, because I think given what we've exposed over the past several months with Doge, there's a good chance some of them are. And we need to investigate that and then shut off that funding, which never should have been there in the first place, and then again lead to prosecutions.
Now, Congressman, I know you have votes you have to get to as well, but you also have a new baby that you're going to have to get to as well. We've had your wife, Danielle, on. She's actually been kind enough to fill in on the show before. So how is mom and little baby Winston doing?
They're doing great. They're happy and healthy. Little Winston is about a month old now.
Yeah.
So he is, as long as he's with Danielle, he's happy. And they're living the good life down in Texas.
Fantastic. It's quite a year for you. I mean, you got first child going on, second child, I'm sorry. Yes. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there in Congress swimming with the sharks. Great stuff so far. And what I'm really curious about, like, you should think about, writing down thoughts as you go, because your perspective will be fresh and you'll be able to describe to people, I think, how this stuff actually works.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Like I said, it's its own bubble here. It really is its own ecosystem here. It's a wild place.
Congressman Brandon Gill, we appreciate the time.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. We know the Trump administration is doing great work. We know they're moving mountains here. We see it all over town. But you know what? They can't take your personal finances into account. You have to do that. Thousands of Americans are buying gold right now from Birch Gold because in the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 30%. Central banks are buying gold in record quantities. So it's obvious that the demand for it, it's not going anywhere. We watched as all the BRICS nations are trying to remove the US dollar as the global reserve currency. We talked about that on the show. So here's the good news is you can find peace of mind in gold. Birch Gold makes it easy to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or you can even buy some and store it in your home safe. Just text my name, Jill, to the number 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, only useful information. They have a better business bureau rating. It's an A+ and tens of thousands of happy customers. So take control and protect your savings today. Text my name, Jill, to the number 989898. With Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton officially running for Senate, the Lone Star State needs a new top cop. And the ideal candidate would be someone that has experience fighting alongside Donald Trump at the Justice Department. Perhaps someone that Trump has called a true MAGA attorney and warrior for the Constitution. Well, we have that guy. Welcome to freshly announced candidate for Texas Attorney General, Aaron Reitz. So thanks so much for joining us here today. So, I mean, what was your thought process? Why did you think that this was an important step for you to leave the Justice Department to run for Texas AG?
Yeah, so Paxton vacating the Texas AG spot is now providing Texans with an opportunity they haven't had in over a decade, and that is to select a new top cop. And as I sort of look at the state of play in our country right now, there's no question that I had a great opportunity to advance the president's law and order agenda at the Justice Department. But after several months of due diligence and thinking about, okay, where can I be most effective? There's this window that's opening right now. We don't know when it's going to open again. I stood by Attorney General Paxton for 3 years as his right-hand man, and I know that if the president doesn't get a true MAGA attorney or a warrior for the Constitution in that Texas AG spot. In other words, if the person to succeed Paxton takes his foot off the gas even slightly, all kinds of dominoes are going to fall. And it's going to be very bad, not only for Texas, but really for the nation. And so I looked at that. I said, I can't accept that scenario. That is a state of being that is unacceptable. And I know what it takes to be a tremendous attorney general because I stood by Ken Paxton's side for 3 years. And I said, look, maybe I'll put my hat in the ring. And I decided to do it. And I think that what Texans are going to see out of me is that I've got the track record and the scars, the battle scars of all the things that we've done, which I'm sure that we'll talk about, to give voters a confidence that, okay, we like that Ken is running for the Senate. We're concerned about who's going to succeed him. But if Aaron Reitz is going to be the guy, we know that things are going to be under control, and we're going to continue to be as aggressive as he has been for the past decade.
Well, I have to tell you, anyone watching out there, how long have we known each other now? How many years?
It's since 2017 we've known each other.
Yeah.
So almost a decade.
So
I've had the same haircut, though, the whole time. Nothing has changed in that regard, sadly.
Well, what I have to say to people, like, the one thing that is completely cannot be questioned is, ever since I've known you, since probably the first couple of times we started talking, you are someone who cares deeply about the Republic of Texas. You care about the state of Texas. It's at your core, the core of your being, and has been throughout the entire trajectory of your career. So, I don't want to sit here and give you a campaign ad, but I do think, I mean, that's just
I
true.
would invite you to give a campaign ad.
But that is who you are. It really is, and it's incredible. Rise that you've had and all the various things you've done. It really is a testament, though, to ultimately your love of Texas, and that's been proven, I think, by everything that you've attempted to do. People can disagree with anything else, but no one can disagree with that. I want to talk about Texas a little bit because, we have this red state issue where, what I like to do is just shame people, right, in all big red states, but I'm a new Texan, a baby Texan.
That's all right.
And we want to shame people because we want people to realize the problem, right, is actually within the House. Sure. And this is a national problem now.
Right.
So in Texas, even right now, even in our year, the year of our Lord 2025, you still have all these DAs that came from Soros.
That's exactly right.
Throughout the damn state.
Yes.
So address that a little bit as one of these issues that's not just in Texas, it's everywhere, but this is a real problem. People still don't quite realize this.
Yeah, I think that's right. So look, I want to agree with sort of your opening comments about really just the love for Texas. I think what we need out of a Texas AG is somebody who first and foremost understands the civilizational crisis that we're in. It's not an exaggeration to say that we are in the midst of a war for the soul and the heart of our country. And Texas in particular, just out of its sheer size, influence, scope, and power, is really always going to be where the heart of that fight is. And it's why Democrats are always competing to try to take Texas. I think that they're going to lose for a long time. The Soros DAs, which we're going to talk about in a second, typically get in the way of that. But this is why it's so important to have a proven, battle-tested warrior at the helm of the AG's office, and not just some standard issue GOP Inc. type. Now that leads me to your other point about sort of, big, lazy, red, comfortably red states. Now, look, without calling any individual out right now, but there is a phenomenon that I like to call just red state complacency. Mm-hmm. And it's where you've just been sort of red for so long that you forget about the fact that you are in the midst of a civilizational and frankly even a spiritual Cold War for our state and for our nation. And you think that just by tinkering on the margins that that's going to be sufficient to sort of preserve liberty, preserve justice, and advance law and order. And it's really just not. Now, to your last point on the Soros DAs, they are in Texas really at the heart of undermining law and order in Texas. So in Texas, every state is sort of structured a little bit differently. But in Texas, the way that our counties are structured is they have massive amounts of autonomy and discretion. Our home rule cities are almost completely autonomous entities, no matter how blue they get. And these ideological Democrats get governmental capture over their city and their county political apparatuses, and they just start advancing an aggressive left-wing agenda. Soros and his cronies have figured this out. It's why they're putting Soros DAs in all the major cities. They're having their own little infighting among Democrats. Now, far left ideological leftist liberals are now outraising, outflanking, and outwinning even so-called moderate or more traditional Democrats in Texas. We saw that most recently in Harris County. The Harris County DA ousted a couple years ago a moderate DA, and Houston has declined since then. The Texas AG, though, as a statewide elected official representing the interests of the whole state and and robed with immense constitutional powers, plays a critical part in suppressing the extent of the damage that these blue Soros-funded DAs do. Now, you have to get creative with the exercise of the weapons that are in statute. And so I'll tell you, this maybe get a little too wonky, but this is kind of a wonky show sometimes. So you asked my colleagues that I worked with at the AG's office as a deputy from 2020 to 2023, you asked them about the quo warranto memo. And so quo warranto is a common law theory by which a sovereign can seek the deposing of a subordinate political entity or official if he or she is in serial flagrant violations of the law. And so it was just in its new stages. It was a new idea. It was kind of like a law review article, basically. But when I'm Texas AG, not only am I going to sort of contain the negative externalities of having blue DAs, Soros-funded DAs, mayors, county officials, and so forth, but I want to seek affirmative measures for the state of Texas, state versus Soros-funded DA. Because if that Soros-funded DA is making our streets unsafe, releasing criminals, making families paranoid about whether they could even walk to the store or play in the park or anything like that, and they're doing it knowingly and maliciously, and they are abusing their prosecutorial discretion to the extent that the cities are rotting, I want to be the kind of Texas AG that comes directly for you and make sure that regardless of how awful and left-wing your ideological non-prosecution of crimes is, you've got a state attorney general who is going to come and hold you accountable and ideally get you out of office.
Yeah, and I'd say we're big 10th Amendment fans here on this show,
we love
right?
the 10th Amendment.
States' rights, let's go. And I love that you say that, it really does matter. States like a Texas, a Florida, a red state that needs to stay red. Now, what would you do? What do you think is the biggest issues that are facing these red states currently, specifically being Texas, since that's what you're running for?
Yeah, look, I think that there are several things, right? I think the national existential crisis that has for which Texas receives an overwhelming majority of the cost is immigration. Okay, Texas has 1,200 miles of border. It's nearly half of the entire Texas-Mexico border. And so Texas is constantly, our infrastructure is getting dragged down. Our public education system is getting dragged down. Our health sector, our emergency rooms are flooded with illegal aliens. Classrooms are speaking full Spanish now because there are no English, and the English-speaking families just leave because the neighborhoods are overwhelmed with illegal immigration. That's just sort of what's happening on the cultural economic front. But Texas is also suffering from a tremendous increase in violent crime and in sex trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking, all of the sort of, I don't want to overuse the term negative externalities, but it's helpful here that illegal immigration is not just having more bodies in your state. There's all kinds of social and economic and frankly, cultural costs that come with having no sovereignty, no border, and no political will to enforce that border. I will also say, though, that one of the things that Texas sometimes can find itself a victim of its own success. And what I mean by that is there is no question that Texas is the place where you come for freedom. It's where you come for liberty. It's where you come for guns. It's where you come for wholesome family values. It's where you come for affordable housing, reliable schools, school choice, great churches, good people, right? All of the reasons that we could list right now where you come to Texas. Sadly, sometimes what that means is you'll get sort of Fortune 100 corporate relocations that then bring with them thousands and thousands of employees who already have built-in serious left-wing biases, and they bring that to the school board. They bring that to the community center. They bring that to their voting habits. Now, one of the differences I love that Senator Cruz always makes when he's talking about this phenomenon is that you've got two types of people, two types of groups of people that come into Texas. The first is the category that I just referred to, where it's like, well, my job is relocating. And if I want to keep my job, I have to move to this urban center, and I'm coming from California or whatever. Typically, those continue their Democratic voting trends, right? But there's this other huge category of voters that Senator Cruz likes to call refugees for liberty. And it's where individual people, small businesses, emerging tech companies, independent oil and gas exploration and production companies, right? Main street entities, good people, families, and so forth that say, I don't want to wear a mask anymore. I don't want to deal with the oppressive taxes. I don't want to deal with, BLM riots. I don't want to deal with non-policing. I don't want to have to go to a CVS and push a button to get some shaving cream because they don't prosecute crimes. I want to go and buy things and live a normal life. Yes. I want to move to Texas. And so I think that just carries with it. Your question, Joe, was, what's really facing the problem with Texas right now? We've got immigration problems. We still have wokeifying influences in our state. Environmental regulations are still a problem. The remnants from the Biden administration, all the outstanding investigations and litigations, that's still an ongoing problem. And you need an AG that's going to be able to understand the contours of each of those fights and press in hard to defend Texas's interests.
All right, we have to take a break, but we're going to come back because this is such a good conversation that we have here. So Aaron Reitz is going to stick with us for another segment. We'll be back with more right after this. Well, Father's Day is almost here. So if you're still scrambling for a gift, don't worry. We've got your back. What he doesn't need is another new tie. He doesn't need another coffee mug. What he really needs is something that speaks to who he is. We know that our culture, it mocks masculinity, traditional values, and fatherhood. He needs a place that still has his back, and that's where BlazeTV comes in. It's where we're unapologetic. BlazeTV stands for what's right. It's faith, family, and freedom. So right now, you can grab our Father's Day special. It's an extra $30 off an annual subscription when you use the code DAD30, but it's good for this week only. It's fast, it's easy, you don't have to wrap it, and it's a gift that actually means something. So if you've waited to get something, this is your moment to win Father's Day, and it's all peace of mind. So this Father's Day, give him something that actually matters. Go to blazetv.com/BNT and use the code DAD30 to grab the deal that shows him that it's still cool to love America. Aaron Reitz is kind enough to stick around. He's running for AG in Texas, and we know that this is a nationally important position. And we know this because of how Ken Paxton helped lead right after one issue after another. And I want to go through a little bit more of your background now, Aaron, and how you got here, because Ken Paxton has been part of the story. Ted Cruz has been part of your story.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And folks that are watching the show, this is not just some second tier statewide office that has no relevance around the country. The Texas Attorney General presides over the largest Republican law firm in the country. That's 600 lawyers, all of whom, by the way, in contrast to the Justice Department, where I spend a little bit of time, all of whom are political attorneys. In other words, they have to engage in the kinds of fights that the duly elected and constitutional officer of the Texas Attorney General points them at. This is an immense power. The constitutional scope of the AG's reach is massive. And to your point, what we all have enjoyed, conservatives around the country, but also in particular Texas, have enjoyed and gotten accustomed to, is having an attorney general who is just ferociously litigating and investigating and defending and appealing on all of the issues. So I know this because I spent 3 years as what he liked to call me his offensive coordinator. So I joined Attorney General Paxton's staff back in the fall of 2020, and sadly the sham election occurred, and President Trump in November of 2020 went looking around the country, said, "Look, we know that at least 4 states have run their elections in an unconstitutional way." Okay. We knew that there were also fraud cases that were happening, but the theory that we were most interested in it was, okay, What are the constitutional claims that we can bring directly to the United States Supreme Court? And you could watch, the drafts would get handed from one Republican to the next. And in typical sort of standard issue, do nothing, business as usual politicians, oh, well, I don't know. I think what we ought to do is just concede the whole thing and just live to fight another day in 4 years. The pitch came to our office in the Texas AG's office. And we understood the nature of the fight. We understood that this was an existential conflict for our country. And we understood that it was going to take tremendous amount of courage to file what is now known as Texas v. Pennsylvania, where we filed a constitutional challenge arguing that 4 states ran their elections in violation of the Electors Clause in the United States Constitution. And that when states have a state v. state conflict, there's no other forum other than civil war but to go to the United States Supreme Court. So we filed that thing the first couple days of December in 2020. The president brought us up in the Oval Office. We were feeling really good about it. And then later that night, sadly, the United States Supreme Court did not take the case on standing grounds, which is an important distinction. It's not that they said that our claims didn't have merit. It's that they said, well, you don't have standing. But even 2 judges dissented from the denial. Alito and Thomas said, no, I don't know where this case would lead. I just want to look at the facts and the law. But I would have granted the case to hear it. It's that big of a question. And that was sort of the beginning. It wasn't the beginning, but it was my exposure to the kind of national lawfare that we are engaged in. Okay, I've always been involved in the fight in one way or another. That's where we met several years ago. Even in law school, I went to the University of Texas School of Law. I was president of the Federalist Society. I was editor-in-chief of the Texas Review of Law and Politics. Before then, I was an officer in the Marine Corps, an Afghanistan war veteran. Went to Texas A&M. Got married when I was very early, and we have 4 kids now. So that's just a little bit of my biographical background. But my point is, my real exposure to the scale of the fight that we're in, the national scale of the fight, and the ability for a state AG to have national impact was exposed to me in the fall of 2020. And then since that time, as Paxton's offensive coordinator, I brought lawsuits, sued, defended, appealed, investigated on every issue that Texans care about. Election integrity, border security, transing of the kids, environmental regulations, big tech, big pharma, the wokeification of our school districts, parental rights, all of the issues that Texans want to know that their next AG is good on. You don't just have to take my positions page on my website for granted, which by the way is aaronreitz.com, AARONREITZ.com. You just have to look at my record. And that record continued as Senator Cruz's chief of staff, where we fought to advance border security measures. We brought home wins for Texas. We thwarted all kinds of pieces of the liberal agenda, Democratic nominees. Cruz and I stood shoulder to shoulder to shut that stuff down and make sure that Texas interests were represented. And it was all those years of work, those years of experience fighting in this bloodbath arena of the lawfare that we're in, where President Trump said, okay, this is a guy who is, quote, a true MAGA attorney and, quote, a warrior for the Constitution. And that's the kind of guy that we need leading the fight. And so this is exactly why what we need moving forward is someone who can partner with President Trump, partner with this administration, who knows his way around not only the AG's office, but how to integrate with the broader law and order agenda with President Trump, and is going to bring justice, law, order, and restoration of constitutional rights in Texas. So that's just a bit about me.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I'll just, second that. I don't know if people know the extent to which, the Paxton regime, when your offensive coordinator role, what was astounding to me was it was finally someone was doing what needed doing.
That's right.
And it was, you guys were doing a lot of work. Like, you put people to work in the largest right-leaning, law firm in the country, right, in the state. You actually started doing this stuff. And what happened because of that is that it encouraged a lot of other states to start following your lead. So this was a national example. You guys were national role models for red states, showing them you don't have to be scared. You can do this stuff. You can take on all these people and do what, normal conservatives in Texas, but throughout the country would say, well, why aren't we attacking that? And you guys did that over and over and over again. And just to take one example, maybe for the audience, just quick, on the national import of this in this role, is on big tech alone, right? Which is enormous problem, censorship, monopolistic practices, right?
Yes.
All this stuff.
Yes.
You guys just came out swinging multiple times, and I think in ways that would every American who cares about this stuff would realize, oh wow, that was really important for all of us.
100% right. Look, on your first thematic point about courage, I mean, I lived this where, again, standard issue GOP would have said, and frankly did as we were navigating it, like, we try not to be on the plaintiff's side. We, look, but if we investigate them or if we sue them, aren't they going to sue us? And it's like, listen, they're going to put your neck in the guillotine no matter what. The people have elected you to exercise the legitimate powers that inhere in your office. I'm not talking about an abuse of power. I'm not talking about, doing anything wrong outside of but the people of Texas have elected a statewide official to exercise and use the tools that he has been given. And so when we were just, to use the phrase you see online a lot, turns out you could just do things, right? Like you can.
We love that phrase.
I know. Like you can do stuff, and people who would normally kind of be like, well, I don't know. I mean, as a precedent setting, it could be weird.
Exactly.
You just do it. They follow. They're emboldened. They're encouraged. People could see what's going on with that. So, and maybe we'll talk more about if we have more time on the big tech issue. But this was one of the things where typically, conservatives were reluctant to go after international corporations, but we saw the nature of the threat coming from big tech. We knew what they were doing to us, our people. We knew that they were suppressing conservative and right-wing voices and Republican candidates. We knew that they didn't have our country's best interests in mind. And so all we had to do was go open up the cupboard of tools, by which I mean laws, statutes, and cases, and say, wait a second, why aren't we using the legitimate tools that we have, whether it's antitrust or consumer protection laws or child safety laws? These are here for us to use, and big tech's going to be held to account for what they've done. And I think what we did in Texas not only was successful in that regard, but for the up and coming generation of entrepreneurs who are sort of small tech or emerging tech, this is why they're coming to places like Texas, where they can really thrive and know that if you're going to be an anti-American, anti-right-wing, anti-Western big tech force for wokeism, Texas is not a friendly place for you. But if you want to build a business, if you want to experiment with technology and do groundbreaking work, Texas is the place for you.
And we're absolutely going to have you back on the show because this is a fascinating conversation. Now, I can say, unfortunately, we have not known each other since 2017, like you and Matthew. We can't go back. We're here right now. But the thing that is standing out to me, listening to you in the way that you're talking right now, is another phrase that we like to use, is you understand what time it is. Right? I think that to me is the biggest thing that I'm getting from you right now. Yeah.
Well, look, I love that phrase because even though it's become sort of a meme phrase, there is something to be said about like, wake up, look around you, look at the riots in LA. And by the way, it's not just LA. If our audience were to just do an image search for sort of riots in Dallas, riots in Austin, riots in San Antonio, it's happening in Texas. You look at what these judges are doing to spark a constitutional crisis. You look at what these cartels are doing to harbor sex traffickers and drug traffickers. You look at what these innocuously named nonprofits are doing to aid and abet the invasion of tens of millions of illegal aliens. You look at what these litigious left-wing Soros-funded groups are doing to thwart the will of the American people as channeled in their president, who in Article 2 is vested with all executive power. And it's like, what do you think that we're going to win this civilizational struggle just by tinkering around at the margins or by putting out a commercial that claims that you stand for freedom. And let me be clear. I want to tell your audience, AaronReitz.com stands for freedom. I mean, we stand for freedom, but it's insufficient.
Yep.
It's insufficient to just mouth the platitudes of generic GOP Inc. politics.
Exactly.
And so this is why the AG, and we've seen it, Ken Paxton broke that mold. He broke that mold as Texas AG. It's why he's a national figure. It's why he's a hero to so many. And we can't afford, and when I say we, of course, I'm speaking to Texans who I want to earn the vote of, but I'm also talking about a national movement that cares about what's happening to our country. We cannot afford a return to just normalcy. We cannot afford a return to just a placeholder AG who wants to just kind of sail into the governor's mansion after, putting, his friends, giving his friends political benefits. We can't afford that. The foot cannot come off the gas. We've got to drive it pedal to the metal. And you need an AG who has already shown that he knows what he's doing when you turn over the keys to this high horsepower vehicle. And I've proven myself over the past several years that I know what I'm doing with this vehicle, and we're going to drive it directly into the left. We're going to rock their world, and we're going to make Texas really a beacon of liberty, prosperity, hope, conservative values, and just high energy law and order.
Aaron, throw out that X handle if people want to follow you.
The X handle is at Aaron_Reitz. That's AARON_REITZ. You can follow me. All of my links, including to my website, AaronReitz.com. You can find it there.
Excellent. Thanks so much for your time. Fascinating conversation.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was great.
We'll be back with more right after this. We're big supporters of keeping men out of women's sports here on The Mandate and keeping men out of women's restrooms earlier as we were talking with Congressman Brandon Gill. But after watching the congressional baseball game last night, we might actually need to segregate the Republicans from the Democrats in the sporting events because we were at the game last night, MP. So how would you describe the energy of the first game since Trump returned to office?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is it was hilarious to me to be at this game. It's the first time I've actually gone to the congressional baseball game, and they had it at the National Stadium, which was, very impressive, right? So two things stand out from that. One is I kept on thinking, I don't even have a quip. Like, I'm sitting here watching members of Congress play baseball against each other. There's about 1,000 jokes. There's about 1,000 sarcastic things I could say. My brain is too overloaded. I can't even say anything, as I posted on social media. Second thing I would say is that it was actually fairly impressive for what you'd expect. I was looking to mock all these people, but actually it turns out that they practiced quite a bit for this game. We found out some of these members of Congress were actually putting in a decent performance. So that was interesting. But the energy, to answer your question, was pure MAGA. The right just dominating the Democrats in what really seemed like some kind of T test, testosterone test. I think the last few years, the Republicans have just crushed the Democrats.
Yeah, shout out to Senator Eric Schmitz out of Missouri. He was on fire last night. Marlon Stutzman, congressman out of Indiana, had an RBI double there. It was incredible what they were out there doing. For me, it was really just my world's coming together. I was a sports reporter. I now work in political and news arenas. And it was literally them just merging together right in front of me last night. So that was fun to just go there and actually be a fan in the stands for a little while.
It was fun to see you in that position of all these worlds colliding for you as you're seeing sports, Congress. Here we are.
Yeah, it was funny because the ball, obviously bounced in the outfield and went into the stands. And I was like, oh, ground rule double. And I said it before all the guys behind me. And I was like, thank you. It's like I knew what I was doing here. But we were out there getting some exercise of our own. We were just walking around DC this morning. And of course, I had to go walk by the White House as we usually do when we're in town. And we saw, because it's going to be a great weekend here. It's Donald Trump's 80th birthday, but it's also 250 years of the United States Army. And so they have all the Army stuff that's going up around town. You can see that right in front of the White House. There's going to be quite the party and military parade this weekend here in town.
Yeah, what we saw, what they're putting up is very impressive because it's large. This is going to be a very large event. It's a big area. This parade is coming through. The stage is very impressive. I mean, you're looking at the White House behind you, out at the mall, and the amount of work that's going into it is really fascinating to see. It puts me in mind of the fact that the Trump administration has been so good on these issues. They want a 250th anniversary for America next year. A lot of people are talking and planning about what that should be. I think these kinds of events are underrated. We don't think they're important anymore. But I think Trump understands that they actually are important. And this has made me think I should stay here to watch this parade. And of course, also we have another thing happening this weekend, which is that you're going to see the left try to protest everywhere, perhaps even including in Washington, D.C. So shaping up to be a very interesting Saturday across all of America. But at the heart of it, it really is going to be this celebration honoring the Army and honoring those who serve and the United States military, which is something that's long overdue.
Well, the last 2 minutes that we have, I would be remiss if I didn't actually go ahead and honor my co-host here, Matthew Peterson, because not a joke here. He is back at the Claremont Institute. He is a Washington Fellow. And as we were leaving this building yesterday, after we got done with the show, we are in the very first crosswalk. And somebody comes up and shakes his hand and says, "Oh, Matthew, congratulations. I just saw the news." So the press release went out yesterday. So congratulations to you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not leaving Blaze or anything. It's
No.
They're making me a Washington Fellow, so I just continue to do more
This is
behind
the old
scenes.
world coming back to the new world here.
Yeah, it's sort of like just when I thought I was out, they bring me back in. But as to being a Washington Fellow, I feel like it's kind of like my grandfather knew a guy from Austria. He said, I play first violin in Austria, and everyone's a Washington Fellow in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah, so you're out there. You're going to be doing this. You're actually going to be coming back to D.C. Quite a bit for this. So we're very excited just to get back into the nation's capital once more. Yeah,
well, look, these are people who love America above all. This is about people who don't need, they're not doing this for the wrong reasons, for a McMansion and McLean or whatever. These are people who are trying to save America. And that's what, Blaze is about. That's what Claremont is about. And that's what all these people are about. So that's what we're going to do. In order to do that, I think this is the crew that understands that real structural reform is needed to actually reform the United States government into something resembling constitutional government.
We're lucky to have you back there. And honestly, we're lucky to have you here every day here on the show as well. That's going to wrap it up for the Blaze News, the mandates tonight. We'll see you back here again tomorrow.